many string built-in functions and how to use them. All right, so we're gonna look at the built-in functions for string that are available within Python and how you can go ahead and use them. There are many of them that are out there, and this particular concept will be exploring all of those. So let's make sure that we just let me get the screen ready here. Let's make sure we push everything to the top. All right, so 1.3.4 many string built-in functions and how we can use them. Here above in the previous concept, 1.3.0, 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, we were just seeing how to print out strings, concatenate strings, format strings differently, next line, quotations. All right, we can all do that using characters on our keyboard, but there might be more things that you want to do with a string. How can you take a string and make it uppercase? How can you take a string, make it lowercase? How can you take a string, count the number of characters that are in that string? There's a lot of things that we might want to do with the string. Like I can ask you how many characters are in my name. All right, if you write through, how many characters are there? It's obvious as 3, right? Because we've counted, but how can the computer program do that? How can you write a program to do that? That would take a lot of string functions. That would take a lot of understanding functions within strings for us to be able to do that. And that's what this concept will be covering. So let's start by defining some variables here. My name, they go to variable that we define. My name equals, and in this time I'll make it a little bit more full. So what I'll do is I'll say Fru, comma Louis, exclamation. All right, I'll give it just a lot of things, and I'll say my age, just so we have age in there as well, equals 30. All right, so now we have a string defined. Let's actually define this as a string, and I'll explain why a little bit later. So we have my name and my age. All right, so what if we want to go ahead and to print the very first character of my age? So if you want to ask me how many decades have I spent on the planet, or what decade am I currently in, right? If you take the first value of my age, that would tell you, yeah, I'm in my 3rd decade, right? Because first decade in my 10 years old, second decade in my teens, now in the 3rd decade. All right, so that's 3. So I can go ahead and say print. So what I want to do is to print just this first value given any string. Can you print the first value? All right, and in this case now I'll be leveraging string functions. So what I can do here is I can say my age. All right, and the string function that we're using is simply using this symbol, this square curly bracket. I don't know how to call that, and then we can give the number 0. All right, and let's run this. And so there you have it. It prints 3. All right, it comes here and it says the very first string, the very first character that it sees in here, and this is what this is asking, is 3. All right, let me emphasize something here, because some people will look at this and say, but Fru, this is kind of interesting. Why did you put 0 but then it's printing 3? Shouldn't this be 1? Right, let's do 1 and see. Right, 1 prints us what? 0. All right, so I hope the light bulb is coming up there, right? And the reason is, in Python and in programming, for the most part, a lot of programming languages, you start counting from 0, right? You start counting 0, 1, 2, 3, right? So if you say 0, then you're asking for position 1. If you say 1, you're asking for position 2. So just always remember that in programming, you always start counting from 0. So if you want to say give me the very first thing, you're saying give me thing at position 0. All right, so that's just a convention within programming, and then it's giving you the first character within my age. So this is the very first built-in function within string that we can look at, but there is more. Right, let's look at my name here. If I ask you how many characters are in my name the way I've written it out here, all right, we can go ahead and try to count, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's just gonna take a long time for us to count that all out. All right, so in this case, we can still use a string function, and there are many string functions that we can use. In this case, I'll say print. All right, I know I'm trying to count my name. All right, that's the number of characters that I want to count in my name. But now the function that I'm going to use is called length, right? So I'm going to say print the length of my name. So what this function does is it goes into my name and it counts the number of characters that are in there. All right, so there are 11, and we can actually verify that. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11. All right, it counts spaces too. So let's do it again. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11, and that's what we've gotten here. Imagine you had a text, a big essay in your that you need to write for school, and that essay was, the teacher said, don't make this essay more than 1,000 words. All right, or it shouldn't have more than 1,000 characters. There's no way for you to manually go in and count it. But if you have Python, you can simply write a Python program now that you know how to write Python, and you can count that, right? So this is not just trivia stuff. This is stuff that you can actually put and apply and use in your life. All right, so this can be very, very powerful. Now, the next one that we can look at is, let me actually make my name to be like this, right? And then like this. So let's print here. Let's print my name just to see what it does. All right, so if you see I'm printing my name, if you notice there is a space here that starts with printing my name. All right, there is a space here, and then at the end there is a space here too as well. All right, that space is coming because my string starts, there is a space, and there is a space here. But maybe that's what we have, but that's not what I want to print. I want to print my name without those spaces available in there, right? How can I remove those spaces? So if you were writing a program and you had this input coming in and it has all the spaces, how can you take that as a string and strip out, right? And strip out those spaces, right? And then that just kind of gives us an idea of what that function will be called. And it's called the stripping function within for strings, right? So I would say print. Now in this case, I'll say my name. All right, and then what I want to do is I'll say dot strip. All right, so it's gonna take my name and it's gonna strip out all those superfluous spaces within the name from that I don't want. All right, so if I go ahead and run this program, so now what you see, I hope you can see the difference. Here, there is no space at the beginning. There's no space at the end. It stripped out the spaces from the beginning at the end of the string, right? Not in the middle of the string. That space is still there. So that doesn't affect that, right? Whereas this one, there is a space here and there is a space here. This one, once I've stripped it out, there is no more spaces. So now, if you had strings that were coming in and they had some spaces at the beginning and some at the end, they were not consistent, you can use this function to make sure that your program is consistent. It's always consistent. All right, because if I go ahead and I do length of this, just bear with me to make this really quick and run this just so you see something. All right, so what you notice here is, here I'm printing length of my name 13, but here I'm printing length of my name that has been stripped, but it's just 11. So that tells us that the counts are different. All right, so stripping really removes those spaces at the end of your string. So very, very, very powerful. Now we can see that my name here is some has upper cases, some has lower cases. Maybe there is a requirement that once you print somebody's name, we always have to print that name in uppercase, right? If you give somebody a name, I want to always make sure that name is printed in uppercase. How can we do that, right? We can leverage a function now called upper, right? So we go my name, right? And the function upper, you can see once I hit dot and I type in upper, it's gonna take this string and it's gonna make it all uppercase. All right, so if you have any string and you wanted to print it uppercase, this takes it and it prints it into uppercase, and this is what we're seeing here. And if I can do uppercase, guess what? We can equally take any string and we can print it as, you guessed it right, lower. All right, so now we have a lowercase. All right, so now it prints as upper, this prints as lower. So that's one other string function that we can use. Now let's say I have this string again, and instead of just printing uppercase, lowercase, finding number of characters, the length of a string, and such, all right, stripping it, maybe I want to replace specific characters. If you give me a string, I want to take and replace every F that we have in that string with a different character, say D. All right, again, string functions give us the ability to do that. So all I can do here is I come back and I say my name and I say dot replace. All right, and then we can say replace F. Well, let's not do fru, let's say F, and then we want to replace that with D. All right, so what do you think will happen, right? If we just take a look at it, so where do I have F? I don't have F, I have F, so it's gonna replace that with a D. So that's all, right? So gonna find one F, is gonna replace it with a D. So my new string should be something like Fru Louis. All right, so if I go ahead and run that, voila. All right, it works through every character in the string, and if it sees a character that matches what you want, then it replaces that character with whatever value that you've specified. All right, let's say I didn't want to replace just a single character. I actually want to replace entire words, right? I wanted to replace the entire fru with day, right? We can still do that. It's gonna move, and if it finds that, it replaces it with whatever you've asked it to replace with. All right, so now it says Nde Louis. So you can either replace single specific characters, or you can replace blocks of characters, or actually entire words. All right, so this gives us, it just moves through that string and says, yep, I find fru here, replace it with Nde, right? And then it moves, nothing else, and then that's it, right? If you're just replacing F, you can like find F and replace that, and if it moves, it's nothing else, it keeps going. So that's one way we can find and replace things within strings. So again, just to put this into context, just imagine that you are writing a very long essay, and everywhere in that essay, instead of spelling New York in the essay, right, you made a mistake and you spelled it as instead of spelling New York, you made it and spelled it as New York, right? Something like that, some error like this in your essay. Now you can bring that into Python, write a program, even if your essay is 1,000 or 10,000 pages long, and say scan through all of this. If you find any New York, replace it with New York, right? And then voila, you write the Python program that can do that for you. That's how powerful these things can be. All right, let's continue with some other functions. Let's say we wanted to take this first name. Let me take out the spaces just for simplicity. Louis. All right, and so we have Fru Louis. Now I know Fru is my first name, Louis middle name, but I want to separate them. I want to print them out as two different things. How can Python do it for us? So instead of just making it as one string, I want to take this string and actually split it and actually break it up, right? Or split it, as we say, right? So splitting, as you know, if you say splitting, then it kind of just makes sense what that function will sound like. So here we'll be using the splitting function. So instead of replace, we're gonna be doing dot split. All right, now I am trying to split that string into pieces, but what should I see to know that I should split the string here? All right, so you have to tell it the character that if it sees, it knows that that's where it should split the string. So now I'm telling it print my name, split it. If you see comma, then make sure that the next thing after that is a new string. So if I run this code, all right, what is provided now, you see the output is different, right? The output here is something called like an array. If you're not familiar with that, we'll talk about that in future videos, but that's just a data type as well, a data structure. So it's printed out Fru, and it's printed out Louis as a split. All right. Imagine that let's add more commas here. Imagine that I had Lou, comma is, right? So guess what? It's gonna split this into 3 parts, right? It's gonna see Fru, split it, see Lou, and then goes there, sees the comma, split it, and then is gonna split. So we should expect to see 3 things now here. All right. So you can now start being able to take strings and then use the splitting function, and then go ahead and split that string into many subparts, right? Into many tokens, or into many little pieces, and now you can use these pieces for other things. All right. So guys, so there you have it. These are some of the functions that are available within Python for working with strings. There's a whole lot of them. I'm sure you might be asking, but Fru, you've just gone through all of this. You seem to just know all of them, and you're giving me examples, upper, lower. How do I know what functions are available within Python for strings for me to use, right? And the beauty of it is, especially, and this is why working with an IDE or something like PyCharm is very powerful, because it has something called IntelliSense. Let me write that, IntelliSense. It can suggest functions for you automatically. So if I don't know what function to use, for example, and you're just trying to say what functions are available for me to work with a string, right? Just come to that string variable name, right? And then you notice I'll say dot, because when you use a dot, you're trying to call a function. Now what you see here is it's actually listing all the functions that are available for working with strings here for me. All right, like length, which we just use. You'll see a lot more: write split, write strip, split lines, swap case, title case, translate, zfill, is decimal, is numeric, count, center, upper, replace. So in case you're just kind of wondering, and this is true for string or any other thing that you're working with, and you don't know what functions are available, if you're using an IDE like PyCharm, you can always leverage this capability to be able to get access to the list of functions that are available, right? Like I said, this is called IntelliSense. I don't know if I spelled that correctly, IntelliSense, something like that. All right. If I was typing my code in Notepad, right? If I just went ahead and open Notepad, we mentioned a little bit earlier, you can always type code in Notepad, right? But the problem with Notepad is, for one, it doesn't have IntelliSense. Like if I say string dot what, right? It's not showing me anything, right? It doesn't have that IntelliSense for me to use. And that's why programmers would turn to use dedicated IDEs for writing their code, as opposed to just writing it in Notepad, right? If you know how to write in Notepad and you know all the functions in your head, fine and good for you, right? At some point, programmers can get to that point, but given the amount of functions, the amount of things that are available out there, right, it might be hard to remember everything. And that's why IDEs like PyCharm or Visual Studio Code or whatever it is you're using, right, can give you some of those capabilities to use IntelliSense and to see functions that are available within that language that you might not be aware of. So this brings us to the end of this lecture 1.3.4, but it also takes us into the next lecture, which will be lecture 1.3.5. And 1.3.5